What if the rumor wasn't just a rumor? That was the thought that slammed into me the moment we heard that heavy metallic thud under our dorm floor. It wasn't the kind of sound a building makes. It was too sharp, too intentional, like someone hitting a pipe on purpose. Jordan tried to laugh it off, but even he sounded shaky. Tessa froze, her eyes darting to the vent where the noise came from. We always joked about the basement myth, the locked door, the old storage level nobody had used in years. But suddenly, it didn't feel funny. Ezra reached for his phone, too scared to turn on the flashlight. And that's when another sound rose up through the vent. Breathing. Slow. Human. Close. We didn't speak. We didn't move. We just stared at each other, realizing the rumor might not be a story at all. And then the breathing stopped, followed by a whisper calling one of our names. None of us said a word on the walk back to Maya's room. It wasn't even a real walk. More like four people pretending they weren't half running from something they couldn't explain. The dorm hallway felt smaller now, like the walls were listening. Every creak sounded sharper. Every shadow looked like it was hiding something. Jordan tried to play it cool, cracking a joke about how old buildings make weird noises, but even he kept glancing over his shoulder. Ezra refused to get near any vents. Tessa replayed the sound on her phone, insisting the whisper could have been the pipes, but her voice kept cracking. Deep down, we all knew what we heard wasn't a pipe. It said one of our names. Maya was the first one to say what we were all thinking. If someone was down there, we needed to know who or what. She pulled out an old campus map she'd kept pinned above her desk. The kind made before the school renovated the building and pretended certain floors didn't exist. The basement wasn't labeled, but a faint outline showed a stairwell none of us recognized. Ezra begged us to drop it, said myths were myths for a reason, but Jordan was already leaning over the map like it was a treasure hunt. Tessa squinted at the faded lines, trying to trace the path. I could feel it. We weren't just curious. We were obsessed, the kind of obsession that never ends well. The moment Jordan suggested we go look for the hidden stairwell, the room fell silent. It wasn't a brave silence. It was the kind that happens when fear and curiosity crash into each other. Tessa shook her head immediately, but her eyes lingered on the map. Ezra muttered something about campus security, but even he didn't get up to leave. Maya looked at each of us like she was waiting for someone to say no. No one did. And just like that, the decision was made. Not because we wanted to explore the basement, but because we couldn't stop imagining what would happen if we didn't. When we finally decided to look for the stairwell, it felt like the whole dorm shifted. The air got colder. The hallway felt longer. And even though we pretended we were doing it for the thrill, everyone knew the truth. Something in that basement had whispered a name, and we needed answers. Jordan grabbed a flashlight from his drawer, like he'd been waiting for this moment. Tessa tucked her hair behind her ear, muttering that this was the dumbest decision of our lives. Ezra asked if we really had to do this right now, and Maya, quiet but steady, said yes, because sometimes the only way to stop being scared of something is to face it. The dorm felt different the moment we stepped into the east wing, like the air itself was holding its breath. This part of the building always stayed colder, but tonight the chill felt heavier, almost deliberate. We walked in a tight line, our footsteps echoing louder than they shove. Jordan led the way with the flashlight, pretending he knew where he was going, even though the map barely made sense. Tessa kept glancing over her shoulder, whispering that something felt off. Ezra stayed close to the wall, avoiding the vents like they might open at any moment. Maya followed the faded lines on her phone, tracing them against the real hallway. The deeper we went, the quieter everything became, until even our breathing felt too loud. And then, Maya stopped walking, because the outline on the map lined up perfectly with a door that shouldn't have existed. Morph. Mean Schroforth. Astia. The door looked wrong. Too old, too heavy, too out of place. It had a faded red stripe running across the middle and a metal latch that looked like it had been welded shut years ago. But the strangest part wasn't the door itself. It was the thin line of warm air seeping out from the bottom. Everything about this hallway was ice cold, yet something behind that door was alive with heat. Jordan crouched down to feel it, pulling back his hand like he'd touched something dangerous. Tessa kept saying the school must be forgotten to seal it properly, but even she didn't sound convinced. Maya placed her ear against the door, listening. Ezra begged her not to. For a moment, nothing happened. Then a soft tapping came from the other side, gentle, slow, almost polite. No one wanted to be the one to open the door, but all of us knew Jordan would try. He always tried. He tugged at the latch first, testing it, and when it didn't move, he pushed his shoulder into the metal. The clang echoed down the hallway like a warning. Maya told him to stop, but he kept pushing until the latch cracked just enough to reveal a sliver of darkness inside. The air rushing out felt warmer now, almost humid. Ezra whispered that we should leave before something left that room instead. Tessa's hands shook so badly, she dropped her phone, and the sound was so loud in the silence that every one of us jumped. Jordan looked back at us, breathing hard, sweat starting to form on his forehead. "If something's in there," he said, "we need to know what." The crack in the door was just wide enough for Jordan to slip his flashlight inside. The beam cut through the darkness, revealing dust swirling like ash floating in warm air. The room beyond wasn't a normal storage space. The walls looked unfinished, with pipes running in places that made no sense. The floor dipped downward as if the foundation had been altered. Maya whispered that this room shouldn't exist. Tessa leaned closer, trying to make out shapes in the dark, and Ezra begged her not to look too long. The light swept across something in the corner. Something metal. Something humming. Not loud, but steady, like machinery working quietly in the dark. Jordan swallowed hard. "Someone's been down there," he said. And none of us argued. By the time we opened the door wide enough to slip through, the hallway felt like it was pushing us forward. None of us wanted to be first, but standing still felt worse. Maya stepped in first, her breath shaky, but steady. Jordan followed with the flashlight, his footsteps echoing strangely on the slanted floor. Tessa hesitated at the threshold, torn between fear and curiosity. Ezra clutched the doorframe like it was the only solid thing left. The warmth inside made the air feel thick, like a hidden room that hadn't breathed fresh air in years. The humming grew louder with each step, low and unsettling. We walked deeper, phones raised, hearts pounding, and for the first time I felt certain that the rumor wasn't just real. It was waiting for us. The humming grew louder the deeper we walked, vibrating through the floor like a quiet warning. Every step felt heavier, like the room was pulling us in. Maya kept her phone raised, the small circle of light shaking just enough to show she wasn't nearly as calm as she looked. Jordan scanned the corners with his flashlight, jaw clenched tight. Tessa muttered calculations under her breath, trying to make sense of the slanted floor and uneven walls, but even she sounded unsure. Ezra stayed closest to the door, but it was already too late. The hallway behind us felt impossibly far away. Then the beam of Jordan's light stretched across the back wall and froze, because tucked behind a row of old pipes was something none of us expected. A desk, not dusty, not abandoned, a freshly scratched chair, papers, a lantern. Someone had been using this room recently, maybe still was. The closer we got to the desk, the more wrong everything felt. There were papers scattered across the surface, not old ones, but recent ones, edges crisp, ink fresh. Someone had circled dates, written notes, drawn strange diagrams of the dorm layout. Maya flipped one over and froze. It was a list of student names, our dorm, our floor. Some were crossed out in heavy black ink. Some were rent. And near the bottom of the list were the four of us. Not crossed out, not touched, just written there, waiting. Ezra whispered that we needed to run. Tessa stepped back, muttering that none of this made sense. Jordan stared at the paper like he was trying to burn it with his eyes. I felt something heavy drop in my stomach. Whoever used this room wasn't a ghost. They were someone who lived among us. Someone watching. A low, creaking sound echoed from somewhere deeper in the room, snapping all of us into stillness. Jordan whipped the flashlight around, sweeping the far side of the basement. The beam fell across a narrow doorway carved into the wall, barely tall enough to walk through. No hinges, no handle. Just an opening leading into another pocket of darkness. Maya inhaled sharply, whispering that the map never showed a second room. Tessa said it couldn't be part of the original building. Ezra begged us not to go any farther, but the curiosity in Jordan's eyes was already burning. He took a step toward the doorway, and the light revealed scratch marks along the concrete frame. Fresh ones. The humming grew louder, as if responding to our presence. Whatever was beyond that doorway wasn't meant to be seen. Jordan's voice cracked when he called out into the doorway, asking if anyone was there. The silence that followed felt like the whole basement held its breath. Maya urged him to stop, but Jordan kept inching forward, flashlight trembling just slightly. Tessa whispered that if the scratches were fresh, then whoever made them couldn't be far. Ezra's breathing grew fast, echoing off the walls. Just when Jordan aimed his light deeper inside, something shifted in the darkness. A quick blur, a flick of movement. Too fast to understand. The sound wasn't loud, but it was sharp enough to slice right through the silence. We all stumbled back, hearts racing. "There's something in there," Jordan said, barely above a whisper. None of us disagreed. We backed away from the doorway slowly, none of us daring to turn our backs on it. The humming felt stronger now, like the machine, or whatever it was, had sensed us. Maya suggested we should leave, just go back the way we came, but Jordan shook his head, saying we couldn't run without knowing what was inside. Tessa argued that curiosity wasn't worth dying for. Ezra said he didn't care what we found. He just wanted to get out. My pulse thudded in my ears as I glanced at the desk one more time. The papers, the names, the diagrams of the dorm. Someone had been planning something, watching something, following something. And now they knew we'd found their hiding place. The air felt too warm, too alive. When another soft sound came from the doorway, something like a foot dragging, we all stepped back at once. The dragging sound didn't stop. It shifted, slow and steady, like something waking up after being still for too long. Every instinct screamed at us to run, but fear pinned our feet to the floor. Jordan raised the flashlight higher, its beam trembling as he aimed it into the narrow doorway. Maya whispered his name, begging him not to go closer, but he didn't move forward or back. Tessa grabbed Ezra's sleeve, pulling him behind her like she needed to protect him even though she was shaking. Just as much. I could feel the air getting hotter, pressing against us, thick and unnatural. Then the humming faded into a low pulse, as if the machine was breathing with us. We stood frozen, staring into the dark, waiting for something to step out, and praying nothing would. The pulse from the machine softened, then steadied into a slow rhythm that felt almost human. Maya took a careful step back, motioning all of us to move toward the exit. Jordan didn't argue this time. He swallowed hard and nodded, stepping backward without breaking eye contact with the doorway. Tessa kept her gaze fixed on the shadows, muttering under her breath that nothing about this basement added up. The heat, the room, the equipment, the lists. Ezra's breathing grew ragged, each exhale sharp and fast. As we moved, something shifted deeper within the dark room. A soft click. Metal against concrete. Maya whispered, "Go. Now." And together, as quietly as we could, we started retreating toward the door we came through. We were halfway to the exit when the sound changed. Not a scrape, not a whisper. Something else. A deep, heavy thump from inside the narrow room. like a footstep. Then another, slow, intentional. Jordan swung the flashlight, and the beam caught something. The briefest glint of metal moving between the shadows. Tessa gasped and grabbed Maya's arm. Ezra backed into the wall so hard he nearly dropped his phone. Maya whispered that we needed to run, but none of us dared move yet. It felt like the darkness was studying us, waiting for the perfect moment to step into the light. Another thump echoed through the walls, louder this time, heavier. Whatever was back there wasn't just awake. It was coming closer. Jordan finally snapped, whisper yelling that we had to go. No more slow steps. No more waiting. We all nodded, terrified but ready. Maya reached for Ezra's hand, pulling him from the wall. Tessa took the lead. This time, her fear turning into urgency as she rushed toward the exit door. Jordan stepped backward, flashlight still aimed at the dark room, covering us as if expecting something to lunge at any second. The heat from the floor pulsed in waves, growing hotter the closer we moved to the door. When Tessa's hand touched the metal handle, she froze. The door was warm. Not basement warm. Burning warm. Maya insisted she push it anyway. Tessa braced herself and shoved. And for a terrifying second, the door didn't move at all. The door finally jerked open with a loud crack that echoed through the basement. Cold hallway air rushed in, slamming into us like a wave of relief. We stumbled through the doorway one by one, tripping over each other in our rush to escape. Jordan was the last one out, pulling the door behind him with all his strength. The second it slammed shut, the humming inside the basement cut out completely. The warmth, the vibration, all of it vanished as if someone flipped a switch. We all stood there in the hallway, shaking, breathing hard, staring at the now silent door. Tessa swore she heard another thump from the other side. Ezra begged us not to open it again, and for the first time since this started, Jordan didn't argue. None of us spoke for a long time. The hallway felt colder than before, like the basement had drained all the warmth from the building. Maya kept staring at the door, as if expecting it to crack open again. Jordan paced back and forth, running his hands through his hair in tight, restless motions. Tessa stayed completely still, replaying every sound we heard, every movement, every detail. Ezra looked ready to bolt, eyes darting to every corner of the hallway like he was trying to make sure nothing followed us. The silence grew heavier until Maya finally whispered that we needed to tell someone. Jordan snapped that no one would believe us. Tessa agreed. The school barely admitted the basement existed. Ezra said we should just go back to our rooms and pretend none of this happened. But deep down, we all knew we couldn't pretend. Not after seeing those papers. We walked back toward Maya's room in silence, each of us replaying everything we'd seen. The list of names, the diagrams, the touches in the doorway, the movement. None of it made sense, and the pieces didn't fit together in any normal way. When we reached Maya's door, she hesitated before opening it, almost like she expected something to be waiting inside. It wasn't. Just the same string lights, the same textbooks, the same map pinned to the wall. But now the room felt different. Smaller, heavier. Jordan shut the door immediately, locking it even though that wouldn't stop anything we'd seen down there. Tessa went straight for the map, tracing the lines again. Ezra sat on the edge of the bed, breathing shakily, saying we never should have gone down there. None of us disagreed. Jordan insisted we needed to go back to the desk to grab the papers. Naya said absolutely not. We barely got out the first time. Tessa argued that photos were the only way anyone would believe us. Ezra said he didn't care who believed us. He just wanted us to stay alive. The argument grew louder, fear spilling out of every word. But underneath the panic, we all knew the same truth. Someone had made that room. Someone had collected those names. Someone had been going in and out of the basement unnoticed. And someone might have been down there when we're. Maya took a shaky breath and said that if we didn't figure out who it was, we'd never feel safe again. The room went silent because she was right. Tessa suggested checking the security logs, but Jordan said the cameras in the East Wing barely worked. Maya said we needed to start smaller. Figure out who had been acting strange lately, who spent time alone, who disappeared at night. Ezra muttered that it could be anyone. The dorm had hundreds of students, but Tessa shook her head. The list on the desk wasn't random. Someone chose those names for a reason. Jordan threw his hands up, pacing again. Maya stared at the floor, lost in thought. And then Ezra said something that stopped every one of us. What if the person on that list isn't a student at all? The room went quiet, because the more we thought about it, the more it made sense. The tension snapped when we heard footsteps outside the door. Slow. Measured. Too close. Maya jumped to her feet, motioning for everyone to stay quiet. Jordan killed the light from the flashlight. Tessa muted her phone. Ezra covered his mouth with both hands. The footsteps stopped right outside the door, not passing by, not approaching, just stopping, like someone knew exactly where we were. The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. None of us dared move. Then came a soft metallic scrape, like something being dragged against the doorframe. Maya's eyes widened. Jordan crouched low, ready to spring. Tessa clung to the corner of the desk. Ezra trembled so hard the bed frame creaked. We waited, barely breathing. The scrape paused, and then two slow taps echoed through the wood. The two taps echoed through the room like they were inside our heads. No one dared breathe until Maya slowly backed away from the door, shaking her head at Jordan when he inched forward. The hallway stayed dead silent. No footsteps leaving, no voices, nothing. Just the soft hum of the dorm lights overhead and the pounding of our own hearts. Ezra whispered that whoever was out there knew we were inside. Tessa whispered back that whoever it was had followed us from the basement. Jordan didn't deny it. He just clenched his fists, jaw tight. Maya motioned for the lights to stay off as she crept toward the peephole. We watched her hold her breath, look through it, and then yank herself back with a sharp gasp. She didn't say what she saw. She didn't have to. Her eyes said everything. We were not alone. Maya whispered that the person outside wasn't moving. They were just standing there, facing the door like they were waiting for us to open it. Jordan whispered back, asking what they looked like, but Maya shook her head, voice cracking as she said she couldn't see their face. Just the shape of them. Tessa backed farther into the room, searching for anything to barricade the door with. Ezra said we needed to call campus security, but the moment he reached for his phone, the shadow under the door shifted. Just a little. Just enough to show that whoever stood there had heard him. Jordan moved to the door, placing his ear against it, and we all watched him freeze in place. Because he heard something none of us did. Breathing. Slow. Right on the other side. Jordan pulled away from the door like he'd been burned, whispering that the breathing was too close. Like the person outside had their face right against the wood. Maya covered her mouth with her sleeve, eyes filling with panic. Tessa insisted we barricade the door now, shoving the chair harder into place. Ezra fumbled with his phone, hands shaking as he tried to dial. But before he could finish, a low metallic scrape sounded from the other side. Not like before. This one dragged slow, sharp, deliberate, right across the metal plate at the bottom of the door. Jordan stepped back, pulling Maya with him. The room felt smaller with every second, the air squeezing tighter around us. And then the scrape stopped, followed by a quiet, unmistakable sound. A key sliding into the lock. The lock clicked once, a soft testing sound that sent all of us stumbling backward. Tessa whispered that dorm keys weren't supposed to open from the outside like that. Ezra said. Maybe it wasn't a dorm key at all. The metal clicked again. And then again, harder. Jordan grabbed the nearest thing he could find, a heavy textbook, like it would do anything against whoever was out there. Maya backed toward the far wall, pulling Tessa with her. Ezra hovered near the bed, knees shaking so badly the frame rattled. The lock turned a fraction. We froze. Another fraction. Jordan shouted for whoever was out there to stop, but the turning continued, slow and steady, like they wanted us to hear every second of it. When it stopped just short of unlocking, silence fell, the kind that makes your heart stop. The lock didn't turn all the way, but something else did. A low thud hit the door from the outside, soft but purposeful, like a warning. Then a slow, dragging sound slid down the center of the door, ending in another pair of taps. Ezra let out a tiny sob he tried to hide. Tessa grabbed his arm. Jordan stepped forward, not brave but desperate. Maya whispered for him to stop, voice breaking. Then, just as suddenly as it started, the shadow beneath the door shifted backward. Another step. Another. The footsteps faded down the hallway. Slow, steady, retreating. We listened, barely breathing, until the building fell silent again. Jordan pressed his ear to the door one last time, then backed away. "They left," he whispered. But the way he said it didn't feel like relief. It felt like a warning. Because whoever it was, they'd be back. We didn't sleep. None of us even tried. We sat together in Maya's room, lights low, every sound in the hallway sending a fresh wave of panic through us. Ezra kept asking what the person wanted. Tessa kept asking how long they'd been following us. Jordan kept replaying the moment he heard the breathing through the door. And Maya! She stared at the map again, eyes focusing on something none of us noticed before, a small handwritten mark near the basement outline. Not printed. Added later. A tiny X. She whispered that it wasn't there earlier. Someone had updated the map recently. Maybe even tonight. My stomach dropped as the truth settled in. Whoever was watching us didn't just know we found the basement. They knew exactly who we were and how to get inside our room. Jordan insisted we had to go back to the basement before whoever was following us did something worse. Ezra almost broke down, begging us not to return. Tessa argued that going back with no plan was insane, but Maya pointed at the map again, tracing the faint outline that led deeper into the basement, beyond the room we entered. She said the humming machine wasn't the real threat. It was a distraction. Something was hidden further inside. Something the person using the basement didn't want us to find. A long, cold silence filled the room. We all knew where this was heading, and even though every part of me screamed not to go back, I also knew the truth. We'd never feel safe if we didn't see what was waiting behind that second doorway. We waited until the hallway fell completely silent. Then, one by one, we stepped out of Maya's room and moved toward the east wing again. Every footstep felt heavier than the last. Tessa kept checking behind us, her flashlight shaking. Ezra stayed close to Maya, refusing to be even an inch away from her. Jordan led the way, moving slowly but with a grim resolve. When we reached the basement door, the hallway lights flickered once, long enough for every one of us to flinch. Jordan reached for the handle, pausing only to make sure none of us wanted to turn back. No one said a word, not because we were brave, because turning back felt even worse. Jordan pulled the door open, and the warmth from below hit us again, thicker than before. The basement felt different this time, hotter, louder, almost alive. We moved quickly to the desk, but all the papers were gone. The lantern, the diagrams, the list of names. Everything had been cleared as if someone wiped the room clean in a rush. Ezra whispered that the person must have known we were coming back. Maya walked straight to the narrow doorway, the one carved into the wall. The scratch marks on the concrete looked deeper now. Fresh. Jordan aimed the flashlight inside, revealing a long, uneven tunnel that stretched further than before, almost like it had been expanded. Tessa muttered that this wasn't possible, not structurally. But logic didn't matter here. Not anymore. Something in that tunnel waited for us. Something that didn't want to be found. We stood at the tunnel entrance, hearing the faint hum echoing from somewhere deep inside. It didn't sound mechanical anymore. It sounded like breathing. Slow, deep, steady. Maya whispered that whatever waited for us had been planning this, watching us, preparing for us. Jordan took one step inside, turning back only once to make sure we were behind him. Tessa lifted her phone light, her hands steady for the first time all night. Ezra swallowed hard, nodding even though he was terrified. And me, I felt the truth wrap around us like the heat in the air. This wasn't an accident. It wasn't curiosity. It wasn't even bravery. Something in the basement had dragged us into its story. And now we were stepping into the part of the campus no one talked about, because the people who did never came back.